Hey everybody, it's Big Mike. I am here with Ian Miller, aka Fed with Roses.
How's it going,
Uh,
y'all?
we are here to discuss Tabor and its repeal today. Mr. Ian here is on a mission to get it repealed and taken out of Colorado. So,
Yes,
Ian,
sir.
tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about what you do and how you got involved here.
My name's Ian. I'm a labor organizer and political organizer here in kind of Denver, North Denver area. I have been organizing workers since about 2021, and it is, building from the ground up, helping fight for what people deserve in their day-to-day life, better pay, better benefits, all that stuff is very, very fulfilling. But from like a top-down perspective, it can be really frustrating that while we are building this, grassroots bedrock kind of movement, there are these obvious failings that can only be taken up from a systemic level. So I decided to complement my, more direct activism with a more, top-down kind of commentary perspective. And when it comes to Tabor specifically, the kinds of solutions that are required for those like systemic top-down issues. Healthcare being too goddamn expensive. We're talking about transit being not even a realistic option for most people. Most people have to take their cars. Most people have to drive around our state. It's just not an
Right.
option for most folks. Not to mention housing costs. Like having a good union job, having good quality pay, obviously can take on a great deal of those challenges. But when it comes to those top-down solutions, you have to tax the ultra wealthy to solve those problems because you have to build a robust, ideally consultant-free set of solutions for those problems. You need public affordable housing. You need publicly owned grocery stores to help cut grocery costs down. You need ideally a single payer healthcare system, although statewide single payer healthcare is very, very difficult to implement, but it still in theory could be done with the right amount of resources. And our state brings in about $500 billion a year, $500 billion of revenue a year comes in and out of our state, and we tax 4% of that. 4% of that overall revenue. And it's insignificant. Our state budget is facing a $200 million shortfall after it was originally a $2 billion shortfall, but now it's only a $200 million shortfall, and that's after we've tightened all of the possible like loopholes and all of the like tweaky things, the more liberal reform that a lot of people already talk about.
Yeah,
And
around the edges.
exactly around the edges, it's bullshit. It doesn't work to deal with. And this is like 2026 is going to be worse than this. This is the calm before the storm kind of budget crisis, right? Without like radical activism and radical fighting on the ground level, as well as just radical changes coming top down, we're going to be in so much worse shape next year. And so it's a matter of like, even if you're like a more liberal or more, conservative Democrat, right? You have to recognize in this moment we are facing down the barrel of something that needs us to take advantage of the resources coming through our state. And Tabor is the shield of the billionaire. It is in the way every time.
Now, for the layman, for the people who don't follow politics, tell us what Tabor is and what its mechanism is that prevents us from, collecting as much as we should and
Mhm.
or could.
So, yeah, Tabor is the taxpayer Bill of Rights. I try to refer to it as the billionaire Bill of Rights because it doesn't actually protect taxpayers, right? The way it's supposed to work, the way it is framed, is that for one, any change to tax law has to go through the ballot measure unless it is like framed as either a fee or a I'm forgetting the second category, but I digress. There are certain categories that you cannot change the taxes code or the taxing of individual categories without a ballot measure. Now, that sounds democratic. That sounds like, oh, so we as voters get input on when the taxes are changed, right? But what it really means is that legislators get elected to, implement big ideas. They get implemented, like they get voted on for the kinds of changes they can bring to the table. And they have to fight this archaic system of like, is it grant money? Is it tax money? Is it fee money? What kind of flavor of money is it? Can I use it for the purposes of what I'm trying to accomplish? So even if we vote someone in who's like pro Medicare for all, pro, robust transit reform, all of these ideas. They don't get to implement the vision that we already voted them in for, right? Like they don't get to do that. And then on top of that, it locks our taxes at the federal rate. So it's only 4% of any revenue coming through our state can be taxed in and out. So let's say that we want to change the tax code. What we have to do is we have to put forward a ballot measure to change those taxes. And that again, that sounds democratic. It says like, oh, we're putting it out to the voters. We're putting it out to people so that like they can make the decision, right? The problem is that billionaires and the ultra wealthy corporations, they can put forward as many ballot measures as they want. They want to change the system, they can just do that. They can throw money at the like they can collect signatures, they can hire people, they can go out and do that. If folks like us who want real grassroots change, but don't have millions of dollars to put a ballot measure on the ballot, we have to build a huge grassroots infrastructure. We have to get a lot of unions involved. We have to get it like it's a huge process for us to be able to do that. And even then, billionaires can throw money at that to advertise and try and, manufacture the kind of consent needed to vote against these ideas. So it always comes down to billionaire money is untaxed and it can be spent to prevent anything that they don't want happening. Tabor serves as a shield for billionaire interests.
Gotcha. And you somewhat answered this in the first part, but where does the everyday Coloradoan, where are they seeing the effects of Tabor here in the state? How does it affect their everyday life?
So, and this is the really clever thing about Tabor's legislation, right? Like, I hate it. It's evil and demonic, but like, it is really clever in that when normal people interact with Tabor, it is usually at one point at the end of the year, at least when they like think about interacting with Tabor. The one time they know Tabor is happening, they get a check at the end of the year for anywhere to $600 to $700 saying, here's your Tabor check, here's your money. And it's like, oh, $600, great, that's awesome. I love getting money. But that's at the expense of all of the good things that we could be doing with that tax money because where it like basically impacts us is because we're unable to get that revenue coming in because we're unable to build a robust program to ensure we can get around our state comfortably to make sure that we don't have to pay exorbitant rates on rent, exorbitant rates on groceries. I mean, you feel it every day. Tabor affects you personally in every single way because we aren't able to tax the ultra wealthy for all the money that they're taking in from the work we're putting in to make them wealthy. I mean, like for example, I support a family of two, and my grocery bills have been going up and up and up because of the tariffs and because of all of these, companies taking advantage of the tariffs and raising their prices and building AI deregulation in to, increase our bills. I probably spent about $200 or $300, per grocery trip last year. I'm now spending about $500 per grocery trip this year. And that directly is impacted because we as legislators aren't able to build the kinds of support systems that would either, improve SNAP benefits or improve, again, building those public grocery stores so that we can cut down on grocery costs on a local level. Any way that legislators could affect the day-to-day cost of you as an individual is affected by Tabor because we can't raise money to do it. We can't build out the infrastructure to actually take on these challenges.
Yeah, and speaking of infrastructure, I think this week I heard an interview with the RTD director on
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was CityCast Denver,
Oh,
and she was
Deborah? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and she was talking about how there was a bunch of maintenance last year downtown and on some of the other lines like the E line here by my house, and she had talked to some other directors from other cities, and she was like, "What do you guys do when you have maintenance going on?" And they said, "Oh, you just put it on another line." And she said, "We only have the one."
And
So
see, like it's crazy because I'm also on a transit advocacy org. I'm a part of Greater Denver Transit, so I actually have a lot of like overlap with this space in particular. Um, we were able to raise $4.7 billion initially, right? We were able to generate that revenue as a result of taxpayers voting on it 20 years ago to make fast tracks happen, and it was from Tabor spending restrictions, right? And so you would think, okay, so Tabor isn't going to necessarily impact this. It's going to be able to, they've raised the money, they're going to be able to do that. But because corporate Democrats love consultant firms, and because they love spending money in ways that benefits their, more corporate friends, even when we're able to raise the money to be able to build this infrastructure, even when we're able to finagle the system around Tabor oftentimes corporate Democrats find a way to waste that money. And that's what happened with fast tracks. We didn't get all the lines that we deserved. And now we're shit out of luck because we're $1 billion over our original budget for that, and we're expected to have to spend another $2 billion to complete, our fast tracks program. But we can't even raise that $2 billion because, again, Tabor's in the way. We can't raise additional funds without taking it back to the voters and making that happen. Even though, again, the money is in our state. It comes through our state every year. $500 billion comes through corporations and the ultra wealthy every single year. But we're just not able to take advantage of that immense wealth that our state generates.
Gotcha. Now, what is the plan to kill Tabor? Is this something we can do through the legislature? Does it have to be a ballot measure? What are we looking at? And do you have a
So
plan to get there?
yeah, so there are a few kind of thought processes on how to kill Tabor, right? Because again, and I harbor on this every video because it's so important. If you think that governance can do a good thing, Tabor is in the way of that good thing. So a big part of it has to be awareness of like talking to people about the ideas for change that they want to see in our state, right? Like, how would you want to see your bills cut? How would you want to see our city grow? How would you, and framing it as Tabor's in the way of that? Because it is fundamentally. So it is a cultural mission, right? Because people who don't really sit in the politics space don't really understand how Tabor serves as this barricade around good legislation. And so you have to frame it as like, if you want to see good things happen in our state, we have to kill Tabor. So for one, it's a cultural battle. And for two, it does have to be a ballot measure. It has to be put to the voters. You cannot kill it legislatively um, without having a super majority in the House and the state Senate, which we are not. We're not there. We have a lot of progressives who hate Tabor, but we do not have a super majority in either
Don't
space.
rule it out for 2027 then. I
Look,
mean,
look, we ride or die. I'm so electoral pilled. I love local politics. I spend a lot of my time political organizing, fighting to elect people like that. I'm working on Gabriel Cervantes' campaign right now, and he's a local state house rep who wants to kill Tabor. I mean, the battle
nice.
is
Yeah,
always
he's
on.
been on the show actually.
Yeah, we love Gabe. But like it requires that kind of cultural battle. It requires getting the public mobilized against it. And if you were to put it out on the ballot, you need 51% to repeal and 60% to amend, or vice versa. Either way, it needs to be an overwhelming victory. It needs to be like ballot measure 2U, where like the culture and the support is there to make it happen. And again, in order to do that, you have to raise about conservatively $5 to $20 million to put it on the ballot. Which again, you need a wide ranging coalition. You need unions on board. You need like organizations that have that kind of power and political capital to be invested and who care about their workers enough to deliver that through. There are a lot of organizations dedicated to that purpose, like the Colorado Fiscal Institute. I work with Colorado People's Alliance and a few other local organizations who are really dedicated to the task of getting rid of it. The number one thing I'd recommend folks do, and it's big and bold on my bio everywhere you go, is joining a local political org is the best way to start getting involved and start pushing for both electing the people who hate Tabor the most and can help build towards that momentum, as well as making sure that you are involved on that groundswell level, because it really is about local organizing. That's where the bedrock of this comes from. You can get all the right legislators in, but if there isn't the groundswell of support to make it happen, it's not gonna be possible. So
Understood. And is this a rolling ball at this point? Do we have somebody working towards this on the official level, or is this all
yeah.
kind of
So the good news is a lot of progressive legislators hate Tabor with a burning passion. The kind of like official ground up organizing thing is what I always like am focused on in terms of like who's kind of coming down on top of this. That's really the Colorado Fiscal Institute. They're working with legislators all the time to help build graduated income taxes and other, steps towards killing Tabor at this time. We're gonna have a graduated income tax bill on the ballot next year, which Exactly, inshallah.
Thank you, sweet baby Jesus.
That's right. That's right. It's so important. The and see that's the asterisk with it, right? Is like we can put that kind of ballot measure on, and start getting, taxes raised on the ultra wealthy, but it is a matter of it's that stopgap, right? It's that temporary measure. Unless we can get big money out of politics, which is another thing I'm like very dedicated to doing activism on. Think the Montana plan or ballot measure 2A out in Maine, things like that.
I was going to ask if you've been following that Montana case.
Absolutely. That is another great way to help kill Tabor is implementing programs like that and fighting for legislation like that on the local level because if states like Maine and Montana can pull it off, there's no reason we shouldn't be able to pull it off. And that kind of limit on corporate and billionaire spending will help with ballot measures moving forward if we have to live within the system of Tabor. But again, like the thing that like is really frustrating for me is that we when living in a representative democracy, right? The function of a representative democracy is that you elect a person to do a thing, right? Like you say, I want to make the roads cleaner. Okay, I want to elect this guy to make the roads cleaner, but then the guy can't raise the money to make the roads cleaner, right? Like it is a stopgap in a system that already has the checks and balances of being able to vote the guy out. And admittedly, because of billionaire and corporate spending in our elections, that stopgap doesn't always work. But creating an additional stopgap to good things happening does not mean that we should look at that and be like, okay, so rather than letting good things happen the way that we expect it but not being able to do it because of billionaire spending, we should put another gap in, and that's where Tabor really steps in the way.
Gotcha. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add? That's all the questions I've got for you.
No, Mike, I really enjoy being on your show. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I am really grateful to have the opportunity to speak to folks about it. And if anyone has any questions for me, feel free to reach out via Fed with Roses on all platforms.
My pleasure. This has been Ian Miller, a.k.a. Fed with Roses. He's got a lovely channel. He makes sometimes little just goofy videos, and they crack me up sometimes. But he is on a crusade to kill Tabor. Check him out. I'm Big Mike. You can support this channel on Patreon. Link is in my bio. And y'all have a good one. Thanks.